Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammad al-Fatih al-Khatim wa ala alihi hakakati amdadil azim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. I am back on my series of lectures on the topic Reflection on the verses of the Holy Qur'an. If you can remember, in the last session, we were discussing the story of Prophet Moses and Pharaoh of Egypt as an extension of the earlier example provided by the Holy Qur'an of Prophet Adam and the devil. While Adam, in this case, is represented by Prophet Moses, the devil is represented by the Pharaoh of Egypt. And when you take their respective profiles, for example, the fact that the Pharaoh of Egypt came into power much earlier before the birth of Moses, and he was in control of the strongest power of the then world, that is Egypt. And he was heralded that Moses will be born, and it is at whose hands that his power will be destroyed. This got him worried. And if you reflect on the story of Adam, Prophet Adam and the devil, you will see that the devil was given an opportunity to enjoy the fellowship of angels in the heaven, despite the fact that he was not originally an angel. He was a jinn, as the Holy Qur'an stated. Almighty Allah said in the chapter Surah Al-Kahfi, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَاسْكُنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. That the devil was originally a jinn, but he was elevated to the position of enjoying the fellowship of angels. That was before the creation of Adam. So is the case here in the story of Prophet Moses and the Pharaoh of Egypt, that the Pharaoh of Egypt was, as I said earlier, in control of the strongest power of the then world. That was Egypt. Egypt was just an example of the United States of today. Just as we know that United States as a country is the biggest power today in the world, economically, militarily, and of course, otherwise. So is the case with Egypt in those days. Egypt was the strongest power. And Pharaoh was opportune to come to power before the birth of Moses, as I said. But when he was told that Moses was to be born, as I said in the last session, he assigned gods. He came up with a rule that since he was given an opportunity to know the source of his fear, he decided to work against it and eliminate that source of fear. That is the male children of Israelites. So he decreed that any male child of the Israelites at the instance of birth should be put to death. And so were they being put to death, to the extent that hundreds of thousands of them lost their lives to this policy. And then the fact that the Israelites constitute the only source of labor to the Egyptians, and the fact that they are being slaughtered at the instance of birth, that cut down the labor strength, that is the workforce, to the extent that it poses threat to the Egyptians, that they feel in the near future they will turn to serve themselves because their source of labor is being cut. So the policy has to be relaxed, that the slaughtering will take place only, that is, it will take place every other year, not every year, every other year. That means they will be skipping 1 year without them slaughtering any child of the Israelites. And so did it turn out to be. It was in the year in which Prophet Aaron was born. Prophet Aaron was born in the year in which the slaughtering was lifted. That is, it was stopped. Then for Prophet Moses, he was born in the subsequent year in which the slaughtering policy was reinforced. Why? One may ask. Why was Moses not born in the year in which the slaughtering was stopped? Because the Almighty Allah did not want to show that he was dodging the policy of Pharaoh. Rather, he will confront that policy with Moses. That if Prophet Moses were to be born in the year in which the slaughtering was stopped, that means that the divine destination had to dodge the scheming and the machination of Pharaoh. And the Almighty Allah is far, far above that. That's why Moses was born in the year in which the slaughtering was reinforced, with an assigned guard in front of his mother's house waiting for him to be born, so as to be slaughtered. That is why when he was born, his mother was terribly worried as to what to do. She knew that a guard was signed in front of the house waiting to hear the scream of a newly born baby, and will come in to identify whether the baby is a male child or female child. As soon as it turned out to be a male child, then it will be put to death. If it is a female child, it will be spared. And that's why she was terribly worried. When she gave birth to Prophet Moses and she saw that he is a male child, she was worried. The Almighty Allah narrated the psychological trauma that the mother of Moses underwent when she saw that newly born child was a male child. The Almighty Allah said in parts of the story he narrated in the chapter of Surah Al-Qasas, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, فأصبح فؤاد أم موسى فارغا إن كاد لتبدي به لولا أن ربطنا على قلبها لتكون من المؤمنين. That the mind of the mother of Moses was empty of anything other than worry and concern about her child, that he will be put to death. She would almost reveal to the people of Pharaoh, if not for the fact that we strengthen her faith, we strengthen her heart, and gave her certainty that is for her to retain her faith in the Almighty Allah, that He will fulfill His promise for her. And when she was delivered of him, the Almighty Allah sent an inspiration to her on what to do. The Almighty Allah said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. In fact, before the inspiration, the chapter in question did mention the policy that was promulgated, that is the law promulgated by the Pharaoh of Egypt with regard to killing the male children of the Israelites. Almighty Allah said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم إنه كان من المفسدين ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين ونمكن لهم في الأرض ونري فرعون وهامان وجنودهما منهم ما كانوا يحذرون. صدق الله العظيم. The Almighty Allah said, Pharaoh rose to power and occupied the throne of Egypt and divided the society. That is, he divided the society into classes. He stratified the Egyptian society into classes. That is, the top class constituted the Egyptians, while the bottom class, the lower class, constituted Israelites who were considered as slaves. And he exploited them and used them as a source of labor. And he promulgated a law that enabled him to slaughter their male children so as to take precaution against the realization of the divine plan of dethroning him. He said, and he spared their female children. The Almighty Allah said that Pharaoh was one of the most outstanding corrupt leaders in the history of humanity. You can see what corruption can cause. If Pharaoh was declared a corrupt leader before he was destroyed by the Almighty Allah, that tells us how dangerous corruption is. The Almighty Allah said, our plan, our will is to empower those who are despised in the land, that is the Israelites. And we make them leaders, and we bestow on them the noble heritage of the Egyptian empire. That is, they will come to take over the empire of Egypt. ونمكن في الأرض ونري فرعون وهامان وجنودهما منهم ما كانوا يحذرون. And we will give them power in the land, and we will show Pharaoh, Haman, and their people, their troops, ما كانوا يحذرون, the very danger they are afraid of. ما كانوا يحذرون. That is, will bring to reality the dream Pharaoh had. He dreamt of somebody coming from the Israelites at whose hands his power will be destroyed. That dream will come to be a reality, said the Almighty Allah. So, if there are quite enough, there is a lot of lessons that we can derive from this brief story. That is, when some people, when society is divided into classes, and some of them are unjustifiably being despised and maltreated, exploited, and subjected to slavery and all manner of inhuman treatment as well as atrocities, it is the divine will that will bring them to power and will bring down those who despise them, those who subject them to atrocities. He will bring them down in the same way he did to Pharaoh. It's a divine rule. This is the established order, is the established path is the established way of treating servants by the Almighty Allah, and nothing can change this established order. This way of handling the servants of Allah, if they are good, whether they are good or they are bad, that is the way the Almighty Allah give recompense to His servants, will never change, whoever is involved. So this is supposed to be a warning against any people that find themselves in power and they divide the society, they stratify the society into classes and subjugate those they hate to all manner of maltreatment, as well as maltreatment as atrocities. That this is how Pharaoh did, and that is how he was dealt with by the Almighty Allah at the end of the day. So then the manner in which Moses was born was followed in the course of the story. That while this policy was enforced in these terrible circumstances, Moses was born by his mother, and the mother was terribly worried because of the law she was aware of, that her child will be put to death instantly. So the Almighty Allah sent an inspiration to her. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وأوحينا إلى أم موسى أن أرضعيه فإذا خفت عليه فألقيه في اليم ولا تخافي ولا تحزني إنا رادوه إليك وجاعلوه من المرسلين. The Almighty Allah said, we sent an inspiration to the mother of Moses that give suckling to give a suck to your child. That is, suckle your baby, and ardi, suckle him. فإذا خفت عليه فألقيه في اليم. If you are concerned about his safety, then throw him into the river. Can you imagine? Is it logical to tell a mother to throw her baby, her newly born baby, into the river if she is worried about his safety? You need to know that whatever has to do with the Almighty Allah defies logic sometimes, or in most cases, it defies logic. You can see here the divine command that the mother of Moses, if she is concerned about his safety, she should throw him into the river. Have you ever heard that? An instruction to a mother to throw her child into the river if she's concerned about his safety. That means if she is worried about his safety, she should entrust his safety in the hands of God. How will she do that? She should throw him into the river. The Almighty Allah will take care of him. He will take over, that he will take charge of the baby as soon as he's thrown into the sea, into the river. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. If you are concerned about safety, throw him into the sea, into the river. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And in a more detailed version of the same story, in another chapter, the Almighty Allah did mention how a casket was constructed in which Moses was thrown. The Almighty Allah said, إِذْ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّكَ مَا يُوحَىٰ أَنْ اقْذِفِيهِ فِي التَّابُوتِ فاقذفيه في اليم فليلقي اليم بالساحل يأخذ عدو لي وعدو له وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني. Moses, the Almighty Allah was addressing Moses, reminding him of his favors to him when he was born in a terrible circumstance, that is awayna ila ummika ma yuha. Remember when we sent an inspiration to your mother, what we did send to her? What was the content of the inspiration? What was the message contained in that inspiration? The Almighty Allah said, Anexifihi fit tabut. Throw him into a casket. Fagzifihi fil yammi. And throw the casket into the river. And the river will push him to the shore of the river, so that My enemy and his enemy will pick him, will pick the casket. That is Pharaoh. Aduwulli wa aduwullah. So, what was the message here? What are we supposed to learn? How would the Almighty Allah take the very child Pharaoh was looking for to kill and entrust his care in the hands of Pharaoh? If not the Almighty Allah, who else can do that? Pharaoh killed as many as hundreds of thousands of Israelite children in search of Moses. And here is Moses being taken to his house and thrown in his lap so that he can take his decision. Let him kill Pharaoh let him kill Moses if he would dare. As if the Almighty Allah was daring Pharaoh to kill Moses if he can. As if Pharaoh was challenged, let him do his worst. Here is Moses in his hands. Why should he keep killing innocent children in search of only one and single child? Here he is in his hand. Let him kill him if he can do that. You can see the divine challenge. You can see how the Almighty Allah challenge him. We'll stop here, inshallah. When we come back, we'll continue exactly where we stopped. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, al-Fatih lima ughliq, wal-Khatim lima sabaq, nasir al-haqq bil-haqq, wal-hadi ila siratika al-mustaqim, wa ala alihi aqdim daril azim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Assalamu alaikum.